Our next presenter is William McConnell, and he'll be speaking about the Flint, Michigan water crisis. Please welcome William.
Imagine a place where inhabitants do not have clean water. Usually impoverished states, such as the Middle East, or maybe poor African states, or even Indian slums come to mind. However, if you can read the title, you're probably thinking Flint, Michigan. And I say to you, you are correct. There is no, or not much, clean water in Flint, Michigan. But you see, Flint, Michigan was once a place of financial success, but is now a place of financial depression. But you see, above all, Flint, Michigan is an American city. But this is an American city that has become an American nightmare. In this speech, I'm going to give you a small summary as to what happened and the cover-up and the implications of what happened. Without further ado, let's dive into how this happened. In order to talk about how, we need to talk about the financial crisis and the financial state of Flint, Michigan. You see, Flint, Michigan is very broke, but I cannot dive into the depth that is need to explain what happened. Instead, let's just put it like this. If you're playing Monopoly, you're Flint, Michigan, and you go bankrupt after your second turn. That's about where Flint, Michigan is. Now, with financial devastation mounting, the officials did what most people did. They made a rash and unsound decision. That decision was to switch the water from Lake Huron to the water in Flint, Michigan. Obviously, there is a huge difference, and the effect of this change was devastating. The lead pipes from the old infrastructure in Flint, Michigan cannot handle all of the contaminants that were in the Flint River. This caused to lead being leached into the water system and the inhabitants of Flint being fed corrupted water. Instead of admitting their mistake, as most genuine people do, the officials instead chose to be selfish. They covered up their story. One of the first people to report a corruption of the water was GM when the water at Flint had corroded the auto parts. Now see, the inhabitants also noticed a strange odor, smell, and color. You see, they noticed that their water had resembled that of a Scooby-Doo lake monster instead of the water they had become accustomed to. But that's not all. Testing had found that there are a high amount of THMs, a chlorine byproduct that is linked to cancer and other diseases. You know it's bad when your own library refuses to use your water because they find it and have deemed it undrinkable. But what was the Flint's officials' response to this? They basically said, don't worry about it. We got it. They deemed it as a not imminent threat to public health. However it was. I'm going to butcher his name, I apologize in advance. Sava Bisfani, an environmental toxicologist, said that the lead levels and exposure were comparable to that of the Iraqi people after the occupation of the U.S. in 2003. Now that we have a small understanding, let's go and look at the economics impact that it had. It's hard to measure the economic impact because it's still going on today. You see, what was done when they switched the water, it was an effort to save about $5 million in 2 years or so. However, that's not going to happen. Instead, small children were damaged and their blood lead levels had increased, nearly doubled. The estimated impact, or financial impact now, is going to be in the hundreds of millions of dollars in Medicare expenses. And that is still climbing today. It's also going to be an estimated $1.5 billion to replace the piping system there. And of course, there's going to be quite a few lawsuits. You see, but this also has more than an economic impact, this has a social impact as well. You see, when we elect our officials, we elect them because we trust them. We believe that they're going to give us a better tomorrow, that they're going to lead us into something better. But however, when they lie to us and say that you can bathe in this, that you can drink this, and that this is just about as good as the original water provided by the Detroit sewage system from Lake Huron. As you guys can tell, these two are not the same. In fact, due to the water, there is nearly, as I said before, a double in the lead blood levels of children. Some of these impacts on children are irreversible. However, let's go on and look at the environmental impact as well. In order to look at the environmental impact, we have to go back many of years ago, where Flint, Michigan was not the Flint, Michigan that we think about now, but instead it was Vehicle City. It was a time of prosper. It was a time of financial gain. However, during this prosperity, there's also a poison being emitted into the Flint River. This poison had come from the dumping of many automotive manufacturers. But you see, at the time, no one cared because this was not our problem. It was the problem of the inhabitants of the river. It was the problem of the wildlife, but it was not ours. But you see, it is ours now. It is ours now because when people flee from states that, well, let's just say Syria, for example. When people flee from Syria, they did not come here to come to water that they cannot bathe in. When people abandon their current worlds to come here, they did not come here for water that they cannot drink. When people come here for a betterment, they did not come here for the Flint, Michigan water. The Flint, Michigan water crisis is an example of how the American dream is not all over America. In Flint, Michigan, it is an American nightmare. But you see, it's time for us to wake up from the nightmare. I did come to you not today with any answers, but instead I ask awareness to the situation at hand. You see, this is a nightmare, and it's time for us as a people, as a government, and as a nation to wake up and once again reestablish our American dream. Thank you.